Let me start by thanking OECD for giving Nigeria this opportunity, and we are very excited to be here. Since this is our first coming, we are going to give some information about our country, Nigeria. Then we look at the role of Nigeria Export-Import Bank, and then we come to the concluding remarks. Nigeria is Nigeria is the second largest economy in Africa, after South Africa, with a nominal GDP of $268.71 billion United States dollars as of 2012. The economic growth rate is one among the highest in the world. We are averaging about 6.9% for the past 5 years, and is projected at between 6 to 7%, up to 2015. We are predominantly an agrarian economy with agriculture contributing over 40% of the GDP. Oil and gas is contributing about 50%, despite the fact that Nigeria is an oil-producing nation, and while wholesale and retail trade contributes about 20%. The economic growth has generally been driven by the non-oil sector, with agriculture, solid minerals, and manufacturing sectors recording growth rates of 4%, 12.7%, and 7.6% respectively. Let me say that Nigeria stands at the point of a demographic advantage that has the potential to clearly emerge as the economic powerhouse of Africa, with a population of 170 million people. That is just a graphic representation of the contribution to our GDP, with agriculture coming first, wholesale and retail trade, and then food, petroleum, and natural gas. Let me also give some macroeconomic variables that have taken place in Nigeria for the past 2 years. We now have a single-digit inflation, 8% as at the end of September 2019, which is the lowest in 5 years. We have a stable exchange rate of one currency, which they call Naira. It has been operating within the band of 155 to 157 to the United States dollar over the past 2 years. We have a robust external reserves, which have risen to about 45.22 billion as at the end of October 2013, from 32.34 as at 2010. We have a vibrant and fast-growing financial sector with total banking assets of 158 billion US dollars as of 2012, which has increased very dramatically from the 113 that was recorded in 2009. We have the highest return on investment, almost one among the major economies, averaging about 35%. And the foreign direct investment inflow in Africa, we are having the largest share as at, for the past 2 years, we have about 16 billion US dollars, according to AMTA. Nigeria has an investment grade rating of BB minus, by Fitch, with a stable, outlook. Now let's look at the Nigerian export sector. Because Nigeria is an oil-producing nation, our export revenues are largely made up of what we have from crude oil and natural gas. The non-oil export is composed mainly of raw commodities We also have semi-commodities, but the finished products are not commanding a very high percentage. But most of what we do, most of our export in non-oil is going to Europe. Europe controls about 50% of the non-oil export of Nigeria. The United States of America is the major oil market for Nigeria, but then that oil export to the US has dropped from 30% in 2011 to about 18% in 2012. The country is undergoing a transformation under President Jonathan, and this is a quotation from our transformation, that under the transformation agenda of the federal government, Nigeria seeks to promote rapid economic growth through the diversification of the economy and increase value-added non-oil export, particularly in the agro-allied and the solid mineral sector, where Nigeria has a significant comparative advantage. Here we only look at a trend analysis of the export for the past 5 years, and you can see that non-oil export has never risen up to 4%. Our export revenues are largely driven by what we have from oil and gas. You can see that up to this point, we are still exporting a lot of our raw agricultural commodities. The semi-manufactured is not much, but of course, it's about 32%. The manufactured is just about 10%. The minerals, and let me mention that Nigeria has huge deposits in solid minerals. We have about 34 solid minerals in commercial quantities, which have not been tapped at all. So you can see that that sector has a lot of potentials that will require time to unlock. This one is just to show that the main market for non-oil export is Europe, and America is the main market for oil. Now let's look at the export credit system in Nigeria. The export credit system in Nigeria can be broadly defined as the institutional arrangements available to provide finance for all the activities along the export value chain, from production to exports. Now, where are the sources of this export credit? We'll talk about the deposit money bank. That is a commercial bank. Nigeria has 20 commercial banks, like I mentioned before, with a total asset base of $158 billion as at the end of 2012. But most of the activities of commercial banks are limited to short-term trade finance, because the kind of money that we have in Nigeria is short-term. Commercial banks are limited to short-term trade finance, because the kind of money that we have in Nigeria is short-term. What is the other source? We are talking about the capital market, where funds can be raised to equities, bonds, and debentures. And we have to mention that Nigeria has one of the fastest growing capital market among the major markets. The market capitalization has been improving from 58 in January this year to about $75 billion as at the end of September. And some of the export companies, especially in the non-oil sector, are quoted on the Nigerian Stock Exchange. We also have situations where government will guarantee specific sector funds, that we want to raise in order to develop a particular sector, like the textile funds, which was raised with the capital market and was guaranteed by the government of Nigeria. Now we have development finance institutions, where Nigerian Export-Import Bank is one of them. We have about 6 of them in Nigeria. And we look at DFIs as instruments of market failure. They are created to intervene in sectors considered too risky by the commercial banks. Because the DFIs promote development, while the commercial banks are driven by profitability. Where you have huge potentials in a particular sector, but the risks are high, the commercial banks will not be able to intervene. So the DFIs will go in and de-risk that particular sector to make it attractive for the commercial banks to come in. And the strength of the DFIs is in offering them long-term funds and attractive funds that are meant for development from bilateral and multilateral agencies as well as the ECS. Now you have the other export credit agencies, which NECTIN is one of it. We have a lot of operating banks here, where they offer buyer, supplier credits, and some long-term development funds. You have the equities and the angel funds. Different export finance instruments could be used depending on the aspect of the value chain being financed, as well as the nature and the tenor of credit. In Nigeria, what we are trying to do now is trying to see how we can create an enabling environment for factoring and processing, to take place. We have huge SMEs, small and medium enterprises, that are not on investment grade, and they are finding it difficult to access funding from conventional commercial banks. So we are working on that, and we expect that within the next 2 years, we should be able to have this product introduced in Nigeria. Now, what is the role of NECTIN Bank? NECTIN Bank was set up in 1991 by Act of Parliament as an export credit agency and a trade policy bank of Nigeria. The main essence of setting up NECTIN was to see how we can diversify the export base of Nigeria. Like I mentioned, 96% of our export revenues come from crude oil. Meanwhile, we have huge potentials in non-sectors that nobody is looking at because we are getting easy money, from crude oil. So NECTIN was set up to diversify the export base through granting of trading facilities both in local and foreign currencies to Nigerians that are involved in non-oil export, to provide risk-bearing facilities, guarantees and credit insurance, business development and advisory services, as well as trade and market information. The bank also complements in attracting foreign investment capital towards the development and the growth of targeted industries and very strategic sectors of the economy, where we are very concessional lines of credit, we are very buyer and supplier credit, so that we can look at acquiring new and clean technologies to make us competitive in international market. The bank is owned by the federal government, and it has an authorized and core share capital of 50 million, which is about $321 million, and the shares are held on behalf of the federal government by the Central Bank of Nigeria and the Ministry of Finance Incorporated. As of today, we have a paid-up share capital of $251 million, but efforts are on by the shareholders to enhance the capital base. The bank has a 9-member board, and the board is responsible for the overall direction and operation of the bank, and it ensures that the bank operates in line with its mandate and the objective. We have a 9-member board. At any point in time, the chairman of the bank must be the deputy governor of Central Bank to ensure that good corporate governance and the bank operates in in line with the global best practice. 3 of the board members are inside, that is the managing director and 2 executive directors. We have 2 directors from Central Bank, including the chairman. We have a director from Federal Ministry of Finance. We have a director from Trade and Investment. And then we have 2 members that represent private export interests. By the Act of Parliament setting up the Exim Bank, we are authorized to raise funds in foreign currency from multilateral and international financial organizations, as well as other Exim banks. And we can also borrow from the external reserves of the country. We operate the bank in a very, very financially sound and self-sustaining manner, and we comply with all the regulatory provisions and the prudential guidelines of the Central Bank of Nigeria. We are owned by the government, but we try to strike a very fine balance between working as a development finance institution so that we can promote development, at the same time making sure that a return is made on shareholders' equity. And for the past 3 years, consistently, we have been making profit and paying dividends to our shareholders. In 2010, we commenced a very major transformation of the bank, and we look at all the departments of the corporate strategy. We look at the organization, the structure and design, the risk management framework, how we can optimize our business processes. We make the place performance driven. We have to brand the bank, to give it more visibility. And then look at the HR realignment, so in an area where we can increase the skills of the staff and motivate them properly so they can bring the best hands. And what has been the outcome of this is that we have a 5-year business plan. We look at the issues of governance and risk management architecture. It was there, but we needed to reinforce it. We look at the brand strategy and the brand engagement strategy. And we have clearly defined rules and responsibilities both for the board committees as well as the management. And we have organization-wide KPIs and scorecards, for everybody. And we have to design our processes, our policies and our procedures. Now, within that, we came up with a vision that we want to be the leading African Export Development Bank, but we are targeting 5 objectives. We want to have a clear market focus and become a major contributor to non-oil export. Number 2, we want to build a world-class institution which imbibes best-in-class corporate governance and risk management practices. Number 3, we want to be a very relevant player in the export market and significantly influence government trade policies. Number 4, we want to build a profitable institution with a robust balance sheet. And number 5, build a highly skilled and motivated workforce. So what has been the mission of the bank? We say we want to become a first-class institution providing a diversified export base through the provision of finance, risk-bearing facilities, and advisory services in line with the government trade policy. And then our core values, we're looking at customer first, one team, professionalism, commitment, and integrity. Now, what we have here is just to summarize what we, how we want to move. We know that as a development finance institution, we don't have that huge amount of money to be able to finance, export. So we are only complementing what the commercial banks are doing because they actually have the funds to be able to hugely finance the export. So we are complementing. But what we do is that there are some sectors, like I mentioned, solid minerals, that has huge potentials. But because the risks here are so much, the commercial banks are not attracted to those kind of sectors. So what we do as a development finance is to move to those kind of sectors, try to de-risk it, make it attractive to the commercial banks who have the funds to fund the export to come in. Now we'll be able to define the non-oil areas that we are intervening. So now we have selected only 4 areas that we believe have very high potentials that can generate jobs for Nigerians and attract foreign exchange. So if you look at our market and look at the areas of the sectors that we are targeting, we're targeting manufacturing, we're targeting agriculture, especially agro processing, because we need to add value to our exports. We're looking at the solid minerals because of the huge potentials, and then we're looking at the services. One of the services we're looking at transportation, we're looking at tourism and entertainment. Then in terms of the market focus, huge opportunities exist within the economic community of West African states, which is the ECOWAS. And then we'll have to look at West Africa, look at Asia, and then the world economies. That's the way we are looking at it. Now the lending products. Well, we get into direct lending on a short, medium and long-term basis. It is basically to the exporters. It will be done under a co-financing or a syndication arrangement with other banks. These loans will grant up to 80% of the total project cost, both in local and foreign currencies. We have the foreign input facility. This one is basically for importation of raw materials, equipment, and spare parts needed for production of goods for export. But under this facility, the exporter must use at least 60% value of local raw materials or intermediate goods, or the local value addition must exceed 50% for a customer to qualify for that facility. Now we have the input, the local input facility. This one is giving a local currency, the Naira. We do it for new companies or greenfield projects, that want to set up in order to export the non-oil sector. So it can be for machinery, it can be for spare parts, it can be for packaging, but just to assist them to export. Now we have a stocking facility. This one is basically giving to companies that the product, the raw material that they use as seasonal. We give them this money so that throughout the year, they should be in a position to produce, without any breakdown. We have the rediscounting and the refinancing facility. This is a short-term finance that we give to banks, and we do that so that we can first influence the cost of credit to the export sector, as well as encourage commercial banks to finance the procurement of non-oil export to raw materials and processing. What we do here is, if a commercial bank gives $10 million, for instance, to company A for 1 year, if there is no refinancing window, the customer can only pay after 1 year and the bank will be able to lend after 1 year. But what we do is, as soon as a bank gives out that 10 million, they send a document to Nexim. Nexim will refinance them to give them more liquidity and at a concessional rate. So that encourages the bank to give more credit. So in a year, instead of giving 1 credit, you can give up to 10 credit because you have a financing window, from Nexim. Now we have the export credit guarantees, which is one of the products, one of the big facilities. um, we can give it to the commercial banks locally, or where a potential exporter has a deferred payment or arrangement with a supplier of equipment outside the country. The bank can come in and give the guarantee and analyze the promissory notes over a certain period based on their own agreement. Now we have the export credit insurance. This one is basically to follow our exporters with some risk mitigating instruments against commercial, economic, or political risk. We also use this instrument to create market access, for our exporters. We have the ECOWAS trade support, facility. This product was developed in 2010, and it came about as a result of huge informal trade in Nigerian economy. I've mentioned that Nigeria is the second largest economy in Africa, next to South Africa. Why South Africa is number one is that the level of informal trade in South Africa is very significant. So you have the statistics to be able to rate the economy. But in Nigeria, the level of informal trade, unregulated trade, is more than 50%. So why trade has been going on between Nigeria and the neighboring countries, it is not captured. So on the basis of that, you will not be able to rate the economy. And this trade is majorly done by the small and medium enterprises. There are some of them that have been trading between Nigeria and the neighboring country for the past 20 years. If you ask them to give you a piece of paper, they don't have it. So we needed to create this facility to capture that trade. That's number one. Number two, some of them walk across, they say they are goods in cash, and put their cash in the pocket and walk back. So we needed to also encourage them to make payment through the banking channel, keeping the payment system. That is the essence of this, this facility. Because huge trade is going on within, among the member states of ECOWAS. If you look at the regional economic blocks in Africa, ECOWAS normally has the highest GDP. It has never gone beyond 6%. So there are huge potential, and we needed to find a way of formalizing this trade, encouraging people to make it through the banking channel, so that it would be easy for them to even access funding from the banks. Now, we talk about the creative and entertainment industry in Nigeria. Nigeria is actually number 3 after Nollywood and Bollywood. After Hollywood and Bollywood, Nigeria is number 3. In terms of revenue, we are number 3. In terms of the number of production in a year, we are actually number 1. We produce so many films, and it is a sector that employs a lot of young people. And we believe that the problem we have in Africa generally is how do we create jobs for the youth. And these are the youths that are majorly involved in creative and entertainment industry. They have the intellect, but they don't have any, not something like this to give to a bank as collateral. So we have to go in and see how do we come up with very innovative, products to enable these youthful people that have the intellectual, they have a lot of intelligence, but they lack a bank collateral to be able to access the funding, so that we can sustain or increase the level of employment in that area. One other initiative that NEXIM has embarked upon is within the ECOWAS, as the West African sub-region, we don't have shipping vessels that can aid trade, that can move our goods. Some of you that are familiar with West Africa, if you move your goods from Lagos, for instance, to Tema Port in Ghana, the major means of transportation is by road. But this road has a lot of challenges. You have multiple checkpoints, you have harassment from security agencies, and over the years, there has been no improvement in road infrastructure. With all this, it will take you maybe about 6 days to move your goods from Nigeria to Ghana. But that is by road. But if you have to move your goods by sea from the same Nigeria to Ghana, it will take you a minimum of 60 days. Because we don't have cargo bases in West Africa. We have to move our goods either to Europe here or to South Africa and then do a transshipment of these goods to deliver them in Ghana. So Nexim Bank came up with this initiative because within ECOWAS, that has about 380 million people, Nigeria controls about 170 million of that population. The GDP of ECOWAS will control about 68%. And we felt that Nexim being the third policy bank, we should come up with an initiative that can overcome this non-tariff barrier. So we'll be able to come up with an SPV. As we speak now, we are raising the funds to ensure that we have this shipping company established. It is not a mandate of Nexim. It is not Nexim that is buying this ship. We are only facilitating. The private sector are going to own and operate the shipping line. We are only facilitating to ensure that the two regions. What has happened that is very interesting is that because the initiative has attracted so much attention, it is both the West and Central Africa now, and we have a huge market. Between the two regions, you have about 26 countries, Central Africa and West Africa, with a combined GDP of 619 billion US dollars, and you have a consumer base of about 440 million people. So it is huge. The Borderless Alliance initiative is to complement its role as a member of the Trade Facilitation Task Force, whose mandate is to improve Nigeria's ranking on trading across borders. Nexim Bank is partnering with the Borderless Alliance. It's a private sector-led partnership in collaboration with the US AID and West African Trade Hub and other stakeholders. The mandate is to see how we can address the problem of non-tariff barriers through policy advocacy. So what we are doing now is that in the borders where a lot of exporters have challenges, we stay at the border, and we have some border posts. We educate people on the documentation required for exports. Where they have challenges, we do it because what we're trying to do is that the whole of West Africa, that is ECOWAS, we should have a market that is run seamlessly. There should be no barriers at all, so that we can trade among ourselves to integrate. Nexim has a lot of strategic relationship with other Exim banks. I have recorded those ones there, US, India, African Development Bank, ECOWAS, and the rest of them. I think that one, I believe that members can go through them. Our funding intervention has majorly been to the small and medium enterprises. Of course, most of them have been greenfield or startup projects to the tune of about 7.65 billion. We have issued guarantees worth over 300 million US dollars. And these interventions were in the target sectors that I have mentioned, which is agriculture, manufacturing, solid minerals, and services. And some of these greenfield projects, that started very small, they have grown so big that they have become very big exporters that are rated by the Central Bank of Nigeria within the list of top 100. And through this intervention, we were able to create over 55,000 direct jobs, in addition to generating about 1.26 billion US dollars to the Nigerian economy. This is just what I've said. It's an analysis of what has happened. The funding intervention in the various sectors: manufacturing, agro processing, solid minerals, and services. Now we come to corporate governance and risk management disclosure. We have some board committees to ensure that everything is done properly. We have established 3 additional board committees in line with the objective. And these are the Finance and General Post Committee, we have the Board Credit Committee, we have the Board Audit Committee, we have the Board Risk Management Committee, and then we have a committee on the bank's transformation, corporate transformation, which is an ad hoc. If you see, if you do that, and then we have the executive committee, which is the ESCO. We were implementing a very robust enterprise-wide risk management system, covering all the risk buckets, including the credit risks, the operational risks, the legal and compliance risks, market and liquidity risks, environmental and social risks. All credit facilities pass through a very vigorous process. From the officer that is processing it, it gets to what we call the Management Credit Committee. It moves from Management Credit Committee to the ESCO, and then move from the Executive Committee to the Board Credit Committee before it gets to the board, even though we have some limits, have some approval limits. The central bank started a sustainable banking principle in 2012, which is fully in place now, and NEXIM is complying fully, with the environmental and social risk in our lending processes. We comply fully with the Know Your Customer, which in Nigeria we call the KYC, ensure that the issues of anti-laundering, terrorist funding, is put on the front burner so that it can be tracked, very easily. So we conduct an annual anti-money laundering training for all staff, and the training for the operational staff, the people that are actually on the decks. That one is even more frequent. Our concluding remarks: that NEXIM is desirous of participating in OECD Export Credit Group meetings in an observer status in furtherance of our strategic objective of promoting policies that will support rapid economic growth through increased diversification of the Nigerian economy and better market access to Nigerian products, as well as the beneficial integration of Nigeria into the global economy. Nigeria has shown over the past few years as one of the major emerging economies with a very high prospect of ranking among the world's largest economies in the next few years. The Nigerian government, on the current transformation agenda, is also strengthening major institutions like NEXIM towards achieving key national objectives and facilitating sustainable growth and development in the country. It is against the background of the foregoing and the significant role being played by NEXIM towards diversifying the Nigerian economy, as well as the regional economic integration, that we request for a favorable consideration of our application. Thank you so much for your kind attention.
Thank you.
role. And I would assume there's at times tension, in fulfilling those two criteria. And I'm just wondering, I guess, how you deal with that, or what your experience has been in that area.
Thank you, US. The money we have is given to us as equity. We don't have money from the government. We have two shareholders that give us money. We have to make a return on this money. What happened is that our own interest rate is substantially lower than what is available in the commercial bank. Because this money has a cost attached to it, there's an opportunity cost attached to it. We have to be seen, we have to strike a balance, making sure that we play the role of a DFI at the same time, make some returns on the investment, no matter how small.
Thank you. Other questions? Suman, please.
Thank you for a very elaborate presentation. I would have two questions. First of all, you told about raising funds also from the capital market. So could you elaborate a little bit how you have raised funds so far? And second point, do you have government guarantee for the products? So how would that have 100% guarantee from the government when you give out a product? Thank you.
Thank you. Raising money from the capital market, we have not started doing that. And when I was making the presentation, I was mentioning the sources of funding, sources that we can get funds to support the export credit. We have not been able to go to the capital market to raise funds, but we have plans to that effect, where we should be able to get to the international capital market and raise money on our own. Now, in terms of government guarantees, at this point we are availing commercial lines of credit from other ECAs. It's not on the back of any government guarantee, but the government has gotten an approval from African Development Bank to avail about $200 million for Nexim Bank. That one is going to be guaranteed completely, by the government. But we want a situation going forward where we should be able to use our own balance sheet and be able to access funds instead of continuously working on the government on our shareholders, to give us money.
Thank you. Other questions? Austria, please.
First of all, I would like to thank Nexim for the excellent presentation. I have another question on fundraising. It's on the slide 19, where you mentioned the specific Nexim Act. What does this act regulate concretely? And he's also mentioned in that respect that you revert to external reserves. Could you elaborate on that?
Sorry, you are looking at, it says slide 19.
19, the role of Nexim, number 4. Is the finance role of Nexim number 4?
Okay, yes. Our act has enabled us to raise funds in foreign currency from other ECAs, from other military agencies, as well as raise money from the external reserve. But since the setup of the bank, almost 23 years, we have not been allowed to borrow from the external reserves, of the country. But we have been borrowing from other exim banks. As we speak now, I think we have borrowed from about three or four, and negotiations are ongoing for some of the lines, that we want to avail from other ECS.
Thank you very much. Canada, please.
We'd like to thank Maxim very much for being here today and making such a comprehensive proposal. We very much appreciate that. We just had a question regarding, you said that you've recently put in place your sustainable banking principles, which include consideration of environmental and social risks. And we were just wondering whether, as you developed that proposal, you had taken the ECG common approaches into consideration.
We're actually working with IFC on this issue, so we have covered almost all the sectors.
Thank you. The Netherlands, please.
Thank you. And thank you for your elaborate presentation. It was very extensive, a lot of information at the time. As already mentioned by the chair, one of the things we highly value is the being complementary to the market. And my question in this respect is, how do you distinguish between which things are marketable and which are not?
Thank you very much for that question. Based on the mandate of the bank, we're able to distinguish. Now, let me explain a little. When we have to refinance a facility from the commercial bank, the credit appraiser, everything about that credit is enforced. Now, we have to determine that that particular credit falls in line with the mandate of the bank before we can finance it. So we have a way of it, because we cannot, anything that has to do with oil, we cannot fund anything that has to do with oil. So we must be sure that this particular credit is for non-oil.
Thank you. Other questions? I'd like to perhaps also ask a question as regarding your export credit insurance program, or the ECOWAS trade support facility, where you cover also buyer's credits, I understand. What type of products would you finance or cover under this program?
The products we are looking at, we have determined about 4 sectors, the non-oil sector that we are focusing on. That is the manufacturing, agriculture, especially agro-processing, because our desire is to ensure that we stop export of raw commodities. There must be some kind of value addition at any point in time. And then the people that are engaged in mining, as well as transportation, which is one of the things that we are doing on transportation and tourism. If a Nigerian wants to set up a small hotel, for instance, in any of the member states of ECOWAS, we believe that it's something that we can support. There has been a lot of integration when it comes to issues of creative entertainment industry, where you find Nigerian actors and Ghanaian actors or people from Cordoba working together to produce a film. These are activities that we form. So we believe that they have some impact both on the economy of Nigeria and the ECOWAS region at large.
Okay, thank you very much. Germany, please.
Thank you again for this comprehensive presentation. So I just wanted to add a question to Pekka's question. As if I'm not mistaken, the focus on export credit and guarantees and insurances lies on short-term business for the time being. How do you see the future? Is whether there be an extension to medium or even long-term credits, guarantees? That's a little bit linked to the products and the manufacturing you would like to export even more.
Yeah, the prospects are very good. We are just at the rudimentary stage for now. That is why we are looking at the short. But it's not only short, we're also looking at the medium term. Because our definition of the medium term is anything that is above 2 years. It falls within the medium term. And we have issued some guarantees and on a medium term basis. But we're looking at longer term. The longer term is we've been talking to the government that there are some funds, there are some development funds that the government needs to make available. And once those development funds are made available, it will be very easy for us to leverage on those funds and be able to issue guarantees on a longer term basis than what we're doing now. We are very excited with the credit insurance because we believe that it is an important tool that can create market access for Nigerian exporters. Once we follow them with those risk mitigating instruments, you can be assured that some of the risks that they are going to face are going to take place. So that one too, we are looking at it from a longer term point of view too.
Thank you very much. Any other Republic Czech, please?
I would be just curious, because you, first thank you for interesting presentation, but because you are Exim Bank and some Exim banks here have in-house insurance and financing as well. Are you allowed to insure your own financing products, or how the things are treated? Could you elaborate a little bit about this? Thank you.
What has happened in Nigeria is that we have not been able to separate the Exim Bank from the credit insurance. In most of the economies, like you talk about China, they have Exim Bank of China, and then they have Sonashore. If you talk about India, they have Exim Bank of India, and then they have their export credit guarantee. But in the case of Nigeria, we are yet to separate these two functions. So we are still operating as one. So it's not as if we insure our product per se, But within the credit insurance, we have series of products, that we are offering. That is why one will begin to get confused. Why should an Exim Bank be issuing credit insurance? The basic fact is that we are yet to separate the two functions.
Thank you. I think you have a lot of roles, and I don't know if they need to be separated. That is an issue you probably will be talking in the future. Certainly like a development bank on one side, an export-import bank one side, a credit insurer one side, and we have lots of various roles, I understand, in Exim. It's very interesting. And also, let's say, domestic financing support for SMEs, for instance, and companies like that. So it's a combination of various roles. Other questions? I think I can see no other flags raising, so I think you have given us a really good presentation and ample information about your systems and approaches to exit credit issues. And I thank you very much for coming here and giving us this presentation. Your request will be discussed later in our meetings, and the Secretariat will inform Nigeria of the members' decision becoming an invitee later on in the course of time. But at the same time, I invite you to remain for the remainder of this week plenary meetings with ECG, which continues, and then also the participants' meeting. So you are welcome to observe for this time at least here. Thank you once again for coming here. Okay, and now I will have